This is the first article I've read from the New York Times in probably a year, and the first thing that pops up is you're almost out of free articles. Oh my god. Well, I get four, right? All right. The New York Times. Jewish allies call Trump's dinner with anti Semites a breaking point. Well, you didn't call it a breaking point when he was defending the Nazis in his first term and before he even got elected. I have a feeling that the Jewish Republican allies realize that Mike Pence or Ron DeSantis might actually get the nomination. And so people are finally jumping ship, which is good. This is good. Supporters who looked past the former president's admirers in bigoted corners of the far right and his own use of anti Semitic tropes now are drawing a line. He legitimizes Jew hatred and Jew haters, says one, and this scares me. Well, it didn't scare you before, but okay, whatever works. That's cool. And everybody always uses the excuse, well, his daughter, Ivanka, converted to Judaism because she married whatever that Weasley dude is that she's married to. All right. Okay. For much of Donald J. Trump's presidency, Jewish Republicans rationalized away the bigoted fringe of Mr. Trump's coalition, arguing that the unsavory supporters in his midst and the anti Semitic tropes he deployed paled in comparison with the staunchly pro Israel policies of his administration. But last week, Mr. Trump dined at his Palm Beach palace, Mar a Lago, with the performer Kanye West, who had already been denounced for making anti Semitic statements, and with Nick Fuentes, an outspoken anti Semite, sorry, I'm stumbling over my words today, and Holocaust denier, granting the anti Semitic fringe a place of honor at his table. Now, even some of Mr. Trump's staunchest supporters say they can no longer ignore the abetting of bigotry by the nominal leader of the Republican Party. I am a child of survivors. I have become very frightened for my people, Morton Klein, head of the right wing Zionist Organization of America, said on Monday, referring to his parents' survival of the Holocaust. Honestly, I've been getting phone calls on a near daily basis from Jewish allies who are terrified by what the GOP is doing and who they're aligning with. So I'm glad that you're finally saying something, but you let this fester for years. Years. Donald Trump is not an anti Semite. He loves Israel, he loves Jews. But he mainstreams, he legitimizes Jew hatred and Jew haters, and this scares me. Well, first of all, he probably is an anti Semite, let's be real. Just because he values business partnerships above his hatred doesn't make him a good person. Not all Republican leaders have spoken out, but Jewish Republicans are slowly peeling away from a former president who, for years, insisted he had no ties to the bigoted far right, but refused to repudiate it. Jewish figures and organizations that have stood by Mr. Trump, from Mr. Klein's group to the pro-Trump commentator Ben Shapiro to Mr. Trump's own former ambassador to Israel and one-time bankruptcy lawyer David Freeman, have all spoken out since the dinner. Day late, a dollar short. You've already set the ball in motion. You elevated Nazis since 2015. You've been at least you've been elevating Nazis simply because you thought this guy would honor your business interests and your interests for Israeli right-wing government. For Jews, the concern extends far beyond a single meal at Mar-a-Lago. though that dinner has become a touchstone, especially for Jewish Republicans. We have a long history in this country of separating the moral character of the man in the White House from his conduct in office. But with Trump, it's gone beyond any of the reasonably acceptable and justifiable norms. Jay Lefkowitz, Lef, Lef, Lefkowitz, I apologize if I'm totally butchering your name, a former advisor to President George Bush and a supporter of many of Mr. Trump's policies, said on Monday. For American Jewry, I didn't even know that was a word. American Jewry. The debate since the dinner has brought into focus what may be the most discomfiting moment in U.S. history in a half century or more. The normalization of anti-Semitism is here, said Jonathan Greenblatt, chief executive of the Anti-Defamation League. On Monday afternoon, Senator Chuck Schumer of New York, the Democratic Majority Leader, went to the Senate floor to denounce Mr. Trump's actions as disgusting and dangerous, then called them pure evil. And just so y'all know, I attended the Democratic Party of Orange County Central Committee last night. It was a Zoom meeting. And our South Vice Chair discussed how she has been receiving a lot of anti-Semitic hate mail, and that there's an investigation going into it right now. And it surrounds, I guess, detractors of Mayor Farrakhan. Now, Mayor Farrakhan is actually Muslim, so that's why I guess they're attacking Lauren instead. But I have a feeling I know who she's talking about. I have a feeling I know who she's talking about, but she did not say who's doing it, but it's definitely being investigated. But there have been several Jewish people within my community who have mentioned that all of a sudden they're seeing a huge uptick in attacks against them. Anti-Semitism in America. Anti-Semitism is one of the longest standing forms of prejudice, and those who monitor it say it is now on the rise across the country. Perilous times. With online threats and incidents of harassment and violence rising nationwide, this fall has become increasingly worrisome for American Jews. Like, for these Republican Jewish leaders, did you not, like, are you just, like, not looking at what he's done and said for years and years and years? I mean, even on the January 6th event, the video that he played absolutely put forward anti-Semitic tropes. And it played on the lizard people bullshit, and he's been unwilling to condemn the QAnon movement too, and they believe that all of y'all are in charge of the world, you're in charge of Hollywood, you're in charge of the music industry, right? And then you've got people like Kanye West out there who are loosely following Louis Farrakhan and trying to say that he's more Jewish than you are, right? Donald Trump, the former president, had dinner with Nick Fuentes, a prominent anti-Semite, at Mar-a-Lago, causing some of Mr. Trump's Jewish allies to speak out. Kanye West, the rapper and designer who now goes by Ye, has been widely condemned for recent anti-Semitic comments. The fallout across industries has been swift. Kyrie Irving, the Nets, lifted their suspension of the basketball player who offered deep apologies for posting a link to an anti-Semitic film. His behavior appalled and frightened many of his Jewish fans. Mr. West, a figure with an enormous following, has espoused hatred of the Jews. The basketball star Kyrie Irving has spread anti Semitic views with a tweet, though he eventually apologized. Neo Nazis are returning to Twitter. Thanks for that, Elon Musk. Bringing memes and coded messages not seen for years. Now that its new owner, Elon Musk, has reinstated accounts that had been blocked for bigotry. Mr. Musk himself on Monday tweeted a cartoon of Pepe the Frog, a symbol adopted by the alt-right segment of the white supremacist movement. That followed a tweet early this year of a German soldier from World War II, which was cited by white nationalist Telegram accounts as evidence of Mr. Musk's like-mindedness. That's why Twitter's going down. Twitter is not going to survive. I would be very surprised if Twitter is not bought out or done in a short amount of time. He's running it into the ground and nobody wants to connect themselves to this bullshit. And House Republican leaders say they will reinstate Representatives Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican of Georgia, and Paul Gosar, Republican of Arizona, to committees from which they were jettisoned by Democrats in part for their anti-Semitic comments or associating with white supremacists like Mr. Fuentes. You didn't think that you would see the rise of Nazis in your lifetime, did you? The level of anti-Semitism being expressed, anti-Semitic acts at a very elevated level, and the acceptability of anti-Semitism, it is all creating an environment which is, thank God, unusual for the United States, and it has been nipped in the bud. That's it. That's the moment we're in, said Rabbi Moshe Har, Executive Vice President of the Orthodox Union, which represents the branch of Judaism that has been most supportive of Mr. Trump. I mean, come on now. Y'all just putting on the blinders, right? Peter Hayes, a Northwestern University historian, drew comparisons to the 1930s when popular figures like Charles Lindbergh, Henry Ford, and Father Charles Coughlin used newspapers, radio broadcasts, and the speaker circuit to echo the anti-Semitism then taking root in Germany. American Jews were deeply divided over whether to confront Nazism head-on through protests and boycotts or to work behind the scenes out of fear of inflaming anti-Semitism, said Mr. Hayes, a scholar of that era. Now Mr. West has promised on Twitter to go DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. The comedian Dave Chappelle delivered a stinging monologue on Saturday Night Live on the Jews and their numbers in Hollywood. And at the same time, American Jewry is divided over whether denunciations of Mr. Trump might harm American policy toward Israel. Should he return to power, Mr. Hayes said. Oh my God, even. You don't even care about your very own existence. You don't care if your friends and family get killed. Because that is what will happen if this continues. The more people prioritize Israel, the more they are willing to make excuses for Trump. And that just makes me sad, he said. I don't know why, first of all, Biden has never said that he's not going to continue our allyship with Israel. I mean, he may try and convince them not to expand their borders and take more land away from Palestinians. But that's, I mean, no American leader has ever said that we're not going to have an allyship with Israel. Mr. Trump tried during his presidency to keep the racists and anti-Semites who supported him at an arm's distance without banishing them altogether. Many Jews accepted the sleight of hand because his policies delivered gift after gift to the right-wing Israeli government of Benjamin Netanyahu. Moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, relentlessly pressuring the Palestinians, recognizing the annexation of the Golan Heights, scuttling the nuclear accord with Iran, pursuing peace accords between Israel and the Gulf states, and above all, dropping any pressure to dismantle Jewish settlements in the occupied West Bank. I mean, Israel, come on now. Come on now. The issue nearly came to a head after the racist, anti-Semitic Unite the Right march in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017, when Mr. Trump said there had been very fine people on both sides of the deadly confrontation. Prominent Jewish members of his administration nearly resigned. They didn't resign, but they nearly resigned over Mr. Trump's refusal to renounce the bigotry more forcefully. Mr. Klein, in an interview, again defended Mr. Trump's actions on Charlottesville, though he acknowledged being troubled by the president's failure to clarify his both sides remark. Even now, Mr. Klein conceded denouncing Mr. Trump was difficult for him. His group honored the former president at a gala on November 13th for his actions on behalf of Israel, and Mr. Klein said he deserved it. I mean, don't you guys see that you're doing the same thing? When you're stealing the land of Palestinians, settlers, people who live in they're generationally lived in those areas, and you're expanding your borders to take up their land, and you're doing it with no concern over how many people are going to die in the process of you bombing them. And don't you see that you're doing the same thing? But Mr. Trump's excuses for dining with Mr. Fuentes and Mr. West, that he didn't know the white supremacist and was offering his help to the musician, have fallen short. On Monday, Senator Bill Cassidy, Republican of Louisiana, wrote on Twitter, President Trump hosting racist anti-Semites for dinner encourages other racist anti-Semites. Yeah, it does. These attitudes are immoral and should not be entertained. This is not the Republican Party. Senator Susan Collins, Republican of Maine, denounced the dinner as well. Mr. Shapiro, who came under near constant attack in 2016 from neo-Nazi Trump supporters, but stood by Mr. Trump during his presidency, also rejected the former president's excuses. A good way not to accidentally dine with a vile racist and anti-Semite you don't know is to not dine with a vile racist and anti-Semite you do know, he wrote on Twitter on Sunday. The Orthodox Union not only called on Mr. Trump to condemn his dinner guests and cut all ties with them, but also asked responsible leaders, especially those in the Republican Party, to speak up, as former U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman has, and be counted among those who explicitly reject anti-Semitism. Quoting the Talmud, Rabbi Auer, the group's executive vice president, said Mr. Trump's good deeds on Israel did not negate his bad deeds on hate and vice versa. Their articles are always so long. I'm sorry, guys. That's what makes life complex, he said. Appearing on CNN on Sunday, Governor Asa Hutchinson of Arkansas, who harbors ambitions to run for the Republican presidential nomination in 2024, said, I hope someday we won't have to be responding to what former President Trump has said or done. In this instance, it's important to respond. He accused the former president of empowering the country's bigoted extremes. Others seem to have equivocated as they waited to see whether Mr. Trump would again weather the controversy. The Republican Jewish Coalition's initial statement condemned Mr. Fuentes and Mr. West for their virulent anti Semitism, but did not mention the former president, instead, calling on all political leaders to reject their messages of hate and refuse to meet with them. Weak. Facing criticism, Matt Brooks, the group's executive director, then followed with, "Let me dumb it down for y'all. We didn't mention Trump in our RJC statement, even though it's obviously in response to his meeting, because we wanted it to be a warning to all Republicans. Duh." Well, that's classy. Ari Fleischer, a former press secretary under George Bush and a member of the Republican Jewish Coalition's board, said he accepted Mr. Trump's statement that he didn't know Mr. Fuentes. You did you? But he said Mr. Trump should have added that had he known, Fuentes would never have been allowed into Mar-a-Lago. Still, Mr. Fleischer tempered his criticism of Mr. Trump with an old photo of former President Barack Obama with Louis Farrakhan, the virulently anti-Semitic, I'm tripping up now, leader of the Nation of Islam, and added in an email, "I should also mention that I do not consider Trump an anti-Semite, and I remain appreciative of his deep support of Israel and for the 4 peace treaties he helped secure in the Middle East. I do consider the former president someone who mistakenly succumbs to flattery from dangerous places." Mike Pence, Mr. Trump's vice president, also said Monday that he did not believe Mr. Trump was an anti-Semite or a racist. But he told Leland Vittart on the broadcaster News Nation that Mr. Trump had demonstrated profoundly poor judgment in giving those individuals a seat at the table, and that he should apologize and denounce them without qualification. Many Republicans have said nothing, including Representative Kevin McCarthy of California, who aspires to become the House Speaker next year, and Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, Mr. Trump's strongest rival for the Republican presidential nomination in 20. That's really surprising from Ron DeSantis because there's a very large Jewish population in Florida. Now, Kevin McCarthy, I believe his district in California, everybody thinks that California is completely blue. It's not. California is actually pretty purple. A lot of the middle section of the state is focused on agriculture because we're the largest producer of food in the world. And I believe Kevin's district is in one of those agriculture districts, somewhere like in the San Joaquin Valley or maybe the Imperial Valley or something. I think it's actually the San Joaquin Valley that he's in. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know who you all are trying to appease at this point because his racist base, his anti-Semitic base, his MAGA base, his QAnon base is a lot smaller than you think it is. And I think it was maybe on Hassanabi, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly this time, that he talked about how the Republicans can't win without Trump's base, but they also can't win if they play up to his base, right? So basically, the Republican Party itself, the voters, not just the politicians, are totally divided right now because a lot of them are sick to death of this Trump bullshit. And they don't want to deal with it anymore. Okay, let's see if I can get through this pretty quickly. Calls and emails to Jewish figures of Mr. Trump's administration, such as former Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and to prominent Jewish Republican donors, including Miriam Adelson, Louis Eisenberg, and Paul Singer, all went unanswered. I literally just opened a pack of cigarettes and I left it on the counter. Gary Cohn, a senior economic advisor who nearly quit after Charlottesville, declined to comment. Where I just said it. What did I just do? Literally just opened it up, walked away. What did I just do? I'll find it. Ronald Lauder, a prominent fundraiser, issued a statement reading, Nick Fuentes is a virulent anti-Semite and Holocaust denier, plain and simple. It is inconceivable that anyone would associate with them. I mean, come on. Don't you all remember the ball? What was that? The Deplora ball? That's where the whole meme of punching a Nazi came from, because they had the Deplora ball. That was when he got elected, wasn't it? Or it was like his inauguration, that they had like a freaking Nazi party in DC. I can't believe y'all that you're like, oh, here we are. We're almost in 2023, and all of a sudden we realize, all of a sudden we're figuring this out. Really? For his part, Mr. Trump shows no sign of contrition. His spokeswoman, Liz Harrington, told a right-wing broadcaster on Monday that Mr. Trump was probably the most pro-Israel president we've ever had. Then added, Mr. Trump is not going to shy away from meeting with Kanye West. Oh, God. This is terrible. This is terrible. Okay, so they made a correction. An earlier version of this article misstated Ben Shapiro's position on candidate Donald J. Trump at the time of the 2016 election. He broke with Mr. Trump during the campaign, but stood with him during his presidency. I don't know. I don't follow that guy because he's like a hardcore right-wing dude. I'm more confused by the Jewish people that actually like supported. I mean, yeah, I get it. Like you want to protect Israel, but is that really your only freaking platform? Is that your only platform? You're willing to put your friends and family's lives on the line for that? Is that what you're willing to do? Just because you want Israel to be able to expand its borders and kill Palestinians? Look, Israel expanding its borders and killing Palestinians is not why all the countries around Israel that hate them don't attack them. The reason they don't attack them is because Israel is a nuclear power. They actually invent a lot of defense technology, and that's why the U.S. has such a great relationship with them, because they trade that information. When we talk about like foreign aid to countries like Israel, it's because it's in exchange for defense technology. So I don't know what y'all freaking out about having a Democrat in office, because that relationship is not going to go away. It's not going to go away.